everyone. Today I'm going to be reading the 11th chapter of The Chocolate Touch. Mrs. Midas was much upset when Mr. Midas told her that John had Dr. Cranium's disease. He said it was chocolatitis, Mr. Midas explained with a worried frown on his face. But he's calling it cranium disease because it was his discovery. Mr. Cranium didn't do it, John said. It's magic. It all started after I ate that chocolate. I'm scared, he added. Mrs. Midas sat down and dabbed her eyes with a lace handkerchief. She was crying. Mr. Midas blew his nose, and he had to attend to something and abruptly left to his room. John had been so busy feeling sorry for himself and not realized how his mother and father would feel about his chocolate disease. "Never mind, Mother," he said, putting his arm around her shoulders. It's all right." Really, nothing was all right, but he couldn't bear to see his mother's tears. He kissed her wet cheek. Her eyes were shut. His eyes were shut. Her eyes were shut. Soft. As his lips softly touched her, so he didn't see the change right away. Then his lips began to feel sticky. He opened his eyes. His mother had turned into a lifeless statue of chocolate. John ran wildly out of the house, without thinking where he was going or what he was going to do. All he knew was that somehow he must get help. For the first time in a long time, he forgot about himself altogether. Now he didn't care about anything but bringing his mother back to life. Without knowing how he could get there, John found himself in the corner where he had bought the chocolate box. The lot was no longer an untidy rubbish dump. The neat red brick building with 2 windows was exactly where it had been in the first place. But the display of candy he had previously seen in the windows was no longer there. In one window, John saw a chocolate trumpet, a chocolate pencil, and a silver dollar with a piece bitten out of it. In the other window, he saw a cafeteria tray littered with chocolate utensils and the remains of a chocolate lunch. Clearly this place was the right one. Clearly the perpetrator must know a lot about John's hateful chocolate touch. John rushed into the store. The perpetrator was standing right behind the counter, carefully polishing something small and round and flat and silver. "I was just thinking of you," he said. John had no time to waste on the pleasantries. "Remember the old coin I found and you gave me the magic chocolate?" he demanded without waiting for a reply. He babbled on. "I ate it and made it everything that touches my mouth turn into chocolate, and I kissed my mother and now she's chocolate and I've got to change her back." "Easy now," murmured the shopkeeper. "Calm yourself." There was an expression of satisfaction in the old man's eyes. "It's all your fault," John declared. "If my mother isn't made better, I'll fight you till you're dead." "My goodness!" the shopkeeper exclaimed. "Whose fault did you say?" "Yours," John said. "If you hadn't taken the money, I wouldn't have—" "Now, John," the shopkeeper interrupted, "I must insist on honesty. I'm glad to hear that you're thinking of your mother for the change. Unselfishness is important, but honesty is also important. If you'll be truthful, perhaps I can help you." John's ears reddened. It was becoming unmistakably evident to him that he had only himself to blame for all this unhappiness. He looked straight into the storekeeper's eyes. "I'll do anything. I'll work for you my life, for you all my life, for nothing. If if you if you if you'll turn my mother back, you can turn me into chocolate instead. If if you want. The scorekeeper apparently ignored John's offers. "You were right, John," he said, "when you guessed that I had something to do with your acquiring the chocolate touch. But you yourself earned the coin that brought the chocolate touch. Only greedy people can see even that kind of money." Dr. Cranium was right up to point, that I suppose that one could say that you had chocolatitis, but it was just an outward sign of selfishness. That's what it meant? Okay, cool. "My mother," John reminded the storekeeper frantically. "My mother's turned to chocolate. Do something about it. Oh, please do something about it." "I'm glad that you are concerned," the storekeeper commented unhurriedly. "Part of your curse is to be concerned about other people. You've been so greedy that you didn't care what happened to other people." "Oh, I know," John admitted woefully. "But please decide about me later, and please make my mother better now." "Well, John," the storekeeper said, "if you had to choose between getting rid of your chocolate touch and restoring your mother to life, which would it be?" For a moment John couldn't help imagining a future of all chocolate meals. The thought was terrible. But then he thought of his mother, as she had been when he had left her, a motionless chocolate statue, unable to speak, her chocolate hand still holding her lace handkerchief. Without further hesitation, John said, "Help my mother." "Well, John," the storekeeper said, "I am giving you another chance. When next you go to school, your chocolate pencil will be a real wooden pencil with lead in it." "But," John began to protest, "what did the pencil matter? Why did the pencil matter?" "The chocolate knife and fork and spoon you left on your tray in the cafeteria will be turned back to metal. Your chocolate trumpet will be a shiny gold one again." "But," John said, "don't worry about chocolate Dr. Cranium's spoon. You will find a whole silver one on the floor where the broken chocolate one lay." "But how about," John said, "Susan Buttercup will discover that the chocolate stains on her podgy dress and her podgy shoes were nothing but water. After all, after all, your silver dollar will be all right." John couldn't stand the suspense no longer. "My mother!" he shouted. "What about my mother? Will she be all right?" The storekeeper smiled. "Why don't you run along home and find out?" he suggested. John turned away without even saying good-bye and ran out of the store. The storekeeper went on back to the disc he had been polishing, a disc the size of a quarter. It had been polished smooth, ready for a new set of initials in case the need for them should arise. That's suspenseful. Seems to be preparing another chocolate touch. New coin and all. Oh well. End of chapter 11. Last chapter is chapter 12. Till next time. Au revoir.